Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Shawn Mackey Show. He's so unpredictable. Mother Nature calls him for advice. Welcome to Season 2, Episode number 11 of the Shawn Mackey Show. Today, we are tucking the Cubs in and putting them to bed for the winter. We're going to get into some grades for players, management, overall team, and discuss some things that transpired here at the end of the season surrounding our beloved Chicago Cubs. When I started the podcast way back in February, it was just before pitchers and catchers had reported. I saw some great things in spring training. PCA had a monster spring, came out kind of cold, and then boom, he starts, we see the PCA that we all want to see. He's hitting for some power. He's using that speed. Yeah, and then just like a lot of other people at the end of the season, he drops off of the radar. Had a couple of nice RBIs in a game against the Brewers. Helped beat the Brewers in that game 3, I believe it was. Key moment for him. But again, nothing there in the clutch. I didn't want to set myself up for heartache, so to speak. I didn't get really excited for the Cubs season until like late May. And we saw the Cubs, and they were at one point leading the division, had the best record in baseball after dropping the first two to the Dodgers out there in the international series. I thought it was going to be rough, but they were showing us some things. They had that divisional lead up until through parts of most of June. They lost that lead just before the All-Star break. I want to say, if I remember correctly. And I know in one of my other episodes, I traced that back to Kyle Tucker. When we found out as fans that Kyle Tucker and the organization knew that he had that bone fracture in his hand in June, and they all let him kind of play through it, didn't see a point of putting him on the IL. And then we started seeing that little drop, that little dip. And then all of a sudden the Brewers, man, they just go on at some point like an 11 or 12 game winning streak, and they overtake the Cubs in the division. And the Cubs, and it was dicey at the end there. The Cubs barely held on to have that number one playoff spot, which was a good thing, because then all 3 games in the wild card series were at Wrigley, and they were able to pull that out against the Padres 2-1. Could have probably, swept them out in 2 games had Craig Counsell not made some stupid decisions in that game. Then also some missteps in the series against the Brewers. And that's why I'm grading Craig Counsell out at, and I feel I'm being generous with Craig Counsell here when I give him a C- for this season. Okay. When he left the Brewers, he said he wanted a new challenge, a managerial challenge. He wanted to get away. He came to Chicago. Chicago gave him the richest contract for a manager. Was it 5 years, $40 million, so $8 million per. And I can't figure out if he duped the Cubs or if the Cubs duped him. I don't know. But I don't think, I know the Brewers weren't going to match that salary. I think they were only offering him $5.5 million. So I think the Brewers, in the back of management's mind up there in Wisconsin, the Brewers were like, you know what? This dude hasn't really gotten us much or anywhere. He's the winningest manager in Brewers history. He led them to like something like 5 or 6 straight division titles. I don't know, but they only went deep into the playoffs one time, 2018, and they went into the NLCS series, but didn't obviously win that because they didn't go to the World Series. And after that, had a lot of early exits. And um, I give this guy a C- in his second year at the Cubs. Yes, he led the Cubs to the playoffs. We had like maybe the third or fourth best record in Major League Baseball this season for the Cubs, but he he just he just made some terrible moves. So, okay, you look at Craig Counsell in 2018. He Brewers are first in the National League Central. They lose to the Dodgers in the NLCS. All right. 2019, second in the National League Central. They lose to in the National League wild card against Washington. 2020, the COVID shortened season, they end up fourth in the National League Central and they lose the NLC wild card to the Dodgers. And 2021, first in the National League Central, and they lose in the NLDS. All right. So 2022, they don't make the playoffs. 2023, they're first in the National League Central, and they lost in the wild card to Arizona. All right. So one, two, three division titles. 2018, 2021, and 2023. His teams only advance as far as the National League Championship Series when they get ousted. So not that great of a playoff track record for Craig Counsell. So that's part of my grade for him on a C-. That's one. Two, I feel that, and if I'm going to grade Jed Hoyer, you know my feelings on Jed Hoyer. I'm grading him out at a D-, bordering on an F plus. Can you even have an F plus? I used to teach 20 years. No, you can't have an F plus. An F is an F. But I think once they found out that Kyle Tucker had that hand injury, in my opinion, it would have been best for them to say, look, you got to go on the IL. You got to sit down. It's June. We're leading the division. We still have half a season to go. This is the time. We need to get you healthy. All right. If the Cubs' sole reason for picking up Tucker was to just make the playoffs, not really fight for that World Series title, then you should have sat that guy down. You should have got him healthy. He wasn't hitting with that hand. He started to tank really bad in June and July. And then on top of it, later in the season, he battles a calf injury. And I don't say there's no way this guy, and if he does get a $400 million contract, then some team out there is going to be absolutely sorry that they signed him. It'll be like Chris Bryant all over again. Chris Bryant signed a huge contract, like $182 million with Colorado or something like that. And I don't think he's played a full season since going over to Colorado. That dude's tailed off tremendously since leaving the Cubs. And, at least the Cubs had him when they did. And he helps bring them the first World Series title in 108 years. But I give Craig Counsell that C-, and I feel like that's being generous. He mishandled the playoffs. Now, I think the Cubs won as much as they did in the playoffs. They take over the Padres and win the wild card series. And then they forced game 5 against the Brewers to take that win, to go to that winner take all game. And so they won 4 out of 8 games in the playoffs. And I think they did that in spite of Jed Hoyer and Craig Counsell. I think the team had a lot of heart. I'm very excited to see what transpires next season. But as far as the playoffs go, look, in game 2 against the Padres, you start who the hell started that game? And you had an opener. Craig Counsell likes to use those openers. You had an opener hoping beyond hope that he'd get out of that first inning with no runs on the board because supposedly that's the inning that Shota Imanaga struggles the most. And so didn't work out. First inning, losing 1-0. Bring in Shota. Shota is pitching well up until a certain point in that game. And Shota ends up walking Tatis, and it's at that moment that Craig Counsell should have taken Shota out of the game. Now, Craig Counsell's a guy who likes to manage in certain ways, like when it comes to the lineup. He's big on the numbers, and we'll get into that in a minute, where I think he dropped the ball once again in the playoffs. But with pitching, he likes to go with his gut. And apparently at that point, his gut said that Shota was going to get out of that inning and retire Machado. Well, that doesn't happen. 2 pitches in, Machado hits the big home run, 3-run home run. Cubs lose that second game. They go on to win the next game, and so that's all for nothing. That's, no worries, right? No harm, no foul. You end up winning that series, so that's not that big of a deal. But you get into that series against the Brewers, and you start Matthew Boyd on 3 days rest. Now, come on. Why in the hell would you do that? You start Matthew Boyd on three days rest. Matthew Boyd is a guy who's been around the league for a while. Okay? He's been in the league for over 10 years. He's 34 years old. Yes. Does he have a resurgent season here with the Cubs? Yes. Okay. But he's still 60 and 77 in his career, in 11 years with the career. By far his best season in Major League Baseball was this season with the Cubs. 14-8. Okay. That's great. But the dude's 34 years old. And you're asking a 34-year-old, 11-year veteran to start on 3 days rest. That to me is absolutely insane. Yes, as individual players, they all probably feel that they can do it. But come on, he pitched this season 179 innings. There's no way he was going to have anything worth a damn on 3 days rest. No way, no how, not at all. And so when you look at the stat line in that game, in game 1, Matthew Boyd, I don't even think he makes it to the 3rd inning. He comes out and he pitches. He didn't even make it out of the 1st inning. He pitched .2. He got 2 outs. That was it. Gave up 4 hits, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. It was obvious that he did not have his stuff, the stuff that we'd seen all season long. That right there dropped Craig Counsell's grade down tremendously. And then he brings in that first game, he brings in Michael Soroka. Come on. This is the only move Jed Hoyer made at the trade deadline for the Cubs. That guy promptly goes on. He comes in as supposed to be a starter. He promptly goes on the IL in his first game with the Cubs. Then when he comes off the IL, you put him in the bullpen, and he goes 1 full inning, gives up 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 2 base on balls, 1 strikeout. At least Aaron Savali and Ben Brown finished out the rest of the game not giving up any runs. That was a game. Michael Busch hits that home run at the beginning. Cubs take that early lead, 1-0. You go to the bottom of the 1st inning, and then boom, it's 6-1. And then in the top of this, and then bottom of the 2nd inning, it's now 9-1. And the Cubs go on to score a run in the 6th and in the 8th, and the game ends up 9-3. That was absolutely terrible, in my opinion. Okay, so that helped me decide to drop Craig Counsell's score or grade down even lower. I mean, people are out there are going to say, well, let's give him a B, a B plus. He got him to the playoffs in their 2nd season. But again, I think this goes back to, like, if the Brewers really wanted to keep Craig Counsell as their manager, they would have matched or come close enough. Like, he's a hometown guy. So if the Cubs are offering him $8 million a year and the Brewers are steadfast at 5.5, it's because they know that he's not going to take that. And I think they feel like they don't want him back. Look what Pat Murphy's doing. He has got the Brewers, albeit they lost last night, but he's got the Brewers in that National League Championship Series. If he takes the Brewers to the World Series, he is going to overtake the legacy of Craig Counsell immediately. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And I don't think the Brewers budged on offering Craig Counsell anything higher on a salary because they knew they had somebody sitting on that bench that could do a hell of a lot better. So now we get to game 2, and this is the game. Shota actually starts this game. But Shota, he's only able to go 2.2 innings, 2 2/3 innings, gives up 5 hits, 4 earned runs. This guy, Shota, in the regular season, in his last 10 games, or last 5 outings in the regular season, he gave up 5 home runs in 22 1/3 innings, or 22 1/3 innings. How do you start Shota in game 2? I feel like you maybe should have had that bullpen game in game 1 to see where you go. Then that gives you 4 days rest for Matthew Boyd. You start him in game 2. And then maybe you don't even consider pitching Shota at all. I know when it came down, I think it would have been Shota's turn in that game 5. But he didn't go. Craig Counsell at that point was like, I can't pitch Shota at all. So that's part of what leads me to grade out Craig Counsell at a C-. The other thing that leads me to grade him out lower is if he likes to go by the numbers when he creates a lineup and goes by the statistics and the metrics. I don't know why Justin Turner doesn't play more in this series. Now I get it. Justin Turner is an old dude, okay? Justin Turner at this point is in the league since 2014, so he's been in the league for 11 years, but he's one of those guys that got a late start, okay? He was born in 1984. So in 2024, he's 40 years old. Okay? And I get that, and I understand that. But if you as a manager, Craig Counsell, are a guy who likes to complete your lineup based on the metrics and the statistics, why is Justin Turner at best? I mean, I know you got Kyle Tucker DHing. He was struggling with that calf injury, but and you don't want to take his bat out of the lineup. You can't take Michael Busch's bat out of the lineup at first base. But you probably absolutely could have played Justin Turner at third base. He played a lot of third base in his career. And when I say, and I know he's an old dude, so don't come at me for that, but here's the thing. In 10 NLDS's, National League Division Series, that Justin Turner played in, 10 series, albeit his teams went 5-5, in 10 National League Division Series, Justin Turner hit 302 with a 410 on base percentage and a 481 slugging percentage. In 10 series, he plays in 37 games, has 156 plate appearances, 129 at-bats, scores 18 runs, 39 hits, 9 doubles, 1 triple, 4 home runs, and 23 RBIs. And in the one game that Justin Turner played for the Cubs in this postseason, he was 1 for 2. with a .500 batting average. Matt Shaw at third base in 8 games has 17 at-bats with 2 hits, 1 RBI, took 5 walks, struck out 7 times, and ended the postseason with a .118 batting average. I'm going to give you some time to let that sink in. All right. So that's my C- grade for Craig Counsell. Now, for the rest of the mainstay players in here, I'm giving Michael Busch an A. I'm going to give him an A+. All right. In the postseason alone, he hit 4 home runs. He led off, I think, 4 games with a home run. He had 27 at-bats. He had 8 hits, 4 home runs, 4 RBIs, albeit he was leading off. So that's a guy next year you need to drop him down. He needs to be your 4 or 5 hitter, right? Because if guys are on base and he hits those home runs, he has more RBIs. So he's 4 home runs, 4 RBIs, takes 3 walks, struck out only 4 times. He hit .296 in the playoffs. He had a great season. Michael Busch did. I'm going to give him an A- or an A. A+. I'm sorry. I believe that's what I said earlier. Seiya Suzuki, he had a great season. I think 103 RBIs in the regular season. He had 32 home runs, only 5 stolen bases. He's not a running guy. He hit for 245. That's by far like the league average. So you could say he's an average player, but I think, he gets an A- right in there from me for Seiya. We know they were going to use him as a DH most of the season once they picked up Kyle Tucker. Well, when Kyle Tucker couldn't play because he was on the IL for a little bit of a stint and missed some games, Seiya Suzuki, and then in the postseason, Seiya played right field. He does have, some issues out there with the glove in right field. So I would say low A-, high B+ for Seiya Suzuki. All right. Ian Happ. I don't like Ian Happ. I don't know what it is about Ian Happ. I know a lot of fans don't like Ian Happ either. This dude goes into way too many slumps. He doesn't hit in the clutch. Now, yes, in the postseason, you could say he hit in the clutch. He did have 2 home runs, and the 1 home run in the game against the Brewers was enough to propel the Cubs to a victory. But he struck out 13 times in 30 at-bats and had a 100 average in the postseason. He's great defensively. I'll give him that. He'll probably win another Gold Glove this season. But at the plate, for a switch hitter, for a corner outfielder, growing up in my day, a left fielder, that was your biggest power hitting guy. So for him to be a corner outfielder, a left fielder, and to struggle as much as he does, I just don't see what the hype is around Ian Happ. 23 home runs. I feel the guy for a switch hitter, he probably should have been up there around the 30, 32, 33 mark like Seiya Suzuki. He hits for average, again, 243 for the season. He only has 79 RBIs. I just don't like Ian Happ. I don't think Ian Happ starts on any other Major League Baseball team and doesn't play as much as he does. And he's got one of these hard and fast no trade clause, so you're probably not getting rid of Ian Happ at all. All right. Nico Horner, he gets an A+ in my view. This kid, he flirted with 300 for better part of the season, ends the season just shy of 300 at 297. Not a power guy, so the 7 home runs and the 61 RBIs, that was really good production out of Nico Horner. A nice make contact kind of guy, a great number 2 hitter. I think instead of having Michael Busch lead off, I personally would take PCA and teach that kid how to really bunt, and then use that speed to get on base. Back in the day, like old Bobby Dernier. Bobby Dernier got on base no matter what it took, and then the number 2 hitter drove him in all the time. And that, get him on, get him over, get him in. So Nico Horner, he gets an A+ in my opinion. Carson Kelly, for a guy that they signed as a backup catcher, yes, postseason, not so good. 1 home run, 28 at bats, 5 hits, 179 average. But Carson Kelly's season, after Miguel Amaya goes down with the injury, Carson Kelly came on really strong, and he ends the regular season with 17 homers, 50 RBIs, 249, and that is absolutely tremendous as a guy you signed to be your backup catcher. And he hits for the cycle as a catcher. Holy shitballs, Batman. That's that alone right there. I give Carson Kelly a big high grade right there. Kyle Tucker, you know, save for the injuries, he still ended up with a 266 batting average, 22 home runs, only 73 RBIs. I don't think when the Cubs traded for Kyle Tucker that this was the Kyle Tucker that they expected to get. When you look at his stats, 2024, um, okay, this is weird. These stats. He didn't have that. He tailed off last year in 2024 in Houston. um, but he's not the guy. I don't think he's the guy that they expected him or thought they were getting when they signed Kyle Tucker. I still got to give him, when he was hot and when he was doing really well in the first half of the season, Kyle Tucker absolutely was a pretty good ball player. But it's those injuries that got him uh, a lower grade in my mind for this season. Matt Shaw, I gotta go with Matt Shaw. Um, it's tough. He had some good defensive games. He does really well. Uh, Unfortunately, from the beginning of the season to the All Star game, he only hit a buck 98. He did after the All Star break through the end of August. He did hit 299. Had a couple 6 doubles, 2 triples, 9 home runs, and he only struck out 20 times. But he ends the season. He's young. He's very young. He ends the season um, statistically at 226 with 13 home runs and 44 RBIs. So I gotta say maybe a C plus, B minus here for Matt Shaw. He's only 23 years old, so there is some potential, and at least he's not like any other rookies on other ball clubs. I mean, I don't know what the trend is with Major League Baseball teams bringing up these touted prospects and keeping them at the major league level to develop. And we've seen a few rookies this season across Major League Baseball, you know, end up under 200 with those batting averages, but they must be some great defensive guys or something. And that's what we got in Matt Shaw. He's a good defensive guy, supposed to have some power. Certainly had a better career with the Cubs than Matt Mervis. Remember when they brought up Matt Mervis and he was supposed to be the guy at first base before they traded for Michael Busch? And he's not the guy. And he's, what is he, in the Marlins system at this point? I don't know. Dansby Swanson, I don't like the contract they gave him just for defense, but, he puts up 20 to 25 home runs every year. He does go into some terrible, terrible slumps. He did not hit in the clutch in the postseason at all. I'd have to grade him out at a solid B. I would really like to see a little bit more clutch hitting out of Dansby Swanson. Okay. He ends the postseason up only hitting a buck 54. Um, no home runs, 1 RBI, 15 strikeouts. That was a terrible way to end the season in the postseason, especially. I mean, the Cubs had 5 guys that they started that Craig Counsell started regularly: Ian Happ, Carson Kelly, Pete Crow, Matt Shaw, Dansby Swanson all hit under 200 in the postseason. That was a terrible time for those guys to go into and stay into. The end of the season is a terrible time for anybody to go into a slump and stay in a slump. Just can't have it in the postseason. Overall, I give the team a B plus. I think, like I said, I think that they went as far as they did against the Padres and against the Brewers, in spite of Jed Hoyer not giving them anything to work with, right? Despite Craig Counsell's silly little goofy gaffes managing this season. Does Craig Counsell get any better as a manager? I don't know. Do we as Cub fans suffer through, flirting with the National League Central title every year and then not going deep into the playoffs with Craig Counsell as our manager? When the Cubs signed him, everybody thought he was the end all be all. Get rid of David Ross. I was absolutely for getting rid of David Ross. But I think with this team this year in 2025, man, I'm eating crow, so to speak, because I think David Ross might have got them to beat the Brewers. Couple of different choices as a manager in all 5 of those games, and maybe David Ross goes with Justin Turner, knowing in the National League Division Series, in 10 different series, Justin Turner's hitting 302, right? I mean, that's like a clutch guy. That's like, the Dodgers still have Max Muncy. Max Muncy could struggle all freaking season long, but you put that guy in the playoffs and he clutch in the playoffs. Comes out clutch, and I'm not even a Dodgers fan except for this week. So, I'm not going to get into the entire team and the pitching staff. I don't look at all those metrics as pitchers. I'm more of an eye guy. I would be a gut manager like Craig Counsell was with the pitchers, but I know in my gut, I wouldn't have pitched Shota. I wouldn't have started Matthew Boyd on 3 days rest. I don't get paid to be the manager, but it is what it is. So let's see. Let's look at the entire lineup here. Reese McGuire too. After Miguel Amaya went down, and they had to bring in another backup catcher for the backup catcher. Reese McGuire, I would have to give him a solid B as a backup catcher. Hit 226 on the season, 24 RBIs, 9 home runs. I like it. 30 hits out of 133 at bats. So Miguel Amaya, can't really grade him out. He's got a 281 average for the season, but he was hurt. He was on the IL most of the entire season, so can't really do nothing with him. Too little sample size to grade out Moises Ballesteros. He does end the season at 298, so there's some promise there with him. All right, Owen Cassie, again, not a big sample size, only hit a 192. He only played in 12 games. Willie Castro, what they brought him in for, I don't know. I couldn't even tell you. And then you bring in Carlos Santana late in the season, and he doesn't even make the postseason rosters. All right, John Birdie, he's an F. They got rid of him early on, not what he expected. Nicky Lopez, up and down, left the Cubs, came back to the Cubs, up and down. And then the whole debacle with Gage Workman. He was supposed to be the guy. He came on strong. He made the team out of that. It was that Rule 5 draft, had to make the team in order for the Cubs to keep him. And he made the team, and then gone. Get rid of him. He's out the door. So that's it for regular season. That's it for the main guys. I thought Colin Ray as a pitcher had a nice, good season with the Cubs. Started out in the bullpen. He came on strong. This is a guy you should have started in one of those playoff games. They used him out of the bullpen, but he goes 11-7 this season with a 3.95 ERA. That's a guy who came on strong. I think he's a guy who should have gotten one of those starts. He didn't. So he was 0-1 in this season in the postseason, took a loss. He was in 3 games, didn't start any games. That's a guy who I think definitely should have started for the Cubs at some point during that Brewers season, but didn't happen. Did not happen. Let's take a look at some of the rest of the pitchers. They got Matthew Boyd listed as a pitcher because he pitched in one of those. Or no, I'm sorry, I was thinking of Matt Shaw. But yeah, Matt Boyd, Matthew Boyd as a pitcher, 14-8 in the, let's see, what was it in the regular season? 14-8, 3.21 ERA. Got to give Matthew Boyd a nice solid B+ there. Colin Ray again, 11-7 when he was starting for the Cubs. Grade him out as a B-. Ben Brown, I don't know, struggled. This guy's got to get like maybe a D+. He was 5-8 as a starter when he was starting with a 5.92 ERA. Gave up 18 home runs in that limited action. Shota, he's a great guy, very likable. He was really well. He did pitch really well when he first came with the Cubs, but 31 home runs given up this year, and he was only 9-8, just above 500, just above 500. Jameson Taillon came on really well this season. Good season for him, 11-7. He gets a nice B+ for me here. Cade Horton at 11-4, by far the Cubs' best pitcher. The record might not have shown it, but that was a big blow to the Cubs when he goes down for the postseason. Brad Keller, 4-2 on the season. You know, not bad. Not bad. Grade him out as a reliever. Nice, solid C+ for him. Daniel Palencia, I don't know. They started this guy out as a closer. Then he gets hurt in a game that he just blew the lid off of that game and sucked. He ends up 1-6 in a relief role. Had some really nice stints in the postseason. So I think we keep him healthy and give him a shot. Don't know if we want the pressure of being a closer, but I think he'd be a good fireballer, a really good middle relief guy, and can get you and hold the lead and get you out of some tough spots. Drew Pomerantz had some really good numbers this season. 2.17 ERA in 57 games. He saved 4 games. He started 4 games, and he did have 1 save. I mean, Daniel Palencia did get the 22 saves, so we'll have to see. Maybe 1 more year of maturity for Daniel Palencia, and we'll see where that goes with him. Caleb Theobar, he had a decent season. A lot of people around Major League Baseball were pretty high on the guy. I don't know. It seemed like every time he came in when I was watching him, I don't know. Jury's still out, I have to say, on him. Maybe a nice B-. I don't even want to go there with Ryan Presley, Javier Assad. A lot of guys here that just were terrible for the Cubs. No longer with the team. They're just listed in the stats. And Nate Pearson, good to see him gone. He was absolutely terrible. So that's it. That's the Shawn Mackey Show, putting the Chicago Cubs to bed. From here on out, we are focusing on football. Season 12, a little teaser. That's going to be posted within 2 days of this episode so we can recap the Bears versus the Commanders that happened last night on Monday Night Football. And then before Saturday, I want to talk about this joke of the AP top 25 in the NCAA. All right. I've mentioned this before. I mentioned to you that I don't understand half the time how they rate these teams, and I'm going to give you my thoughts on that in the next episode, episode 12. So that's it, folks. I'm out the door. Peace. We'll see you when we see you next time. Later. Hey, if I made you laugh, made you think, or even made you smile, please tell all your friends. If I didn't, just keep that shit to yourself. Thanks for listening to the Shawn Mackey Show.